What are the downsides of weed that people don't talk about? Not having an appetite if you're not high. You have to smoke heavily though to get to that point. Been smoking every day for the past decade and am recently realizing that being too introspective can be a negative thing at times. I've been thinking too much and acting too little. After about 10 years of use, my body has developed an allergy that I have never heard anyone else get. When I use THC, my sinus gets inflamed, nearly blocking the airway, forcing me to breathe through my mouth, making falling asleep very difficult. Also, the next morning the boogers I get are relentless. It is like all the stuff is coming back out my sinus. This almost always ends up with minor bleeding nose. It can become your only personality trait. Weed is for people that have found their way in life, it's not for people who are looking for the way, my uncle. In other words, as fun as it may seem when you're young. Get your shit together first: education, family, career, etc. Edit. Thanks for the gilding, kind strangers, and for those of you who have taken offense. Relax, I'm glad it all worked out for you, or my sympathies if it didn't. Regardless, weed can for most people take your motivation and drive away if it's taken up and consumed in high volumes at an early age. It's just think it isn't a good idea. I think if you're ripping bongs every day from 16 up through high school. Cannabinoid hyperemesis and cyclic vomiting syndrome. I would say that as a long-term smoker that wants out, it has made me incredibly boring. If I have evening plans on the weekend but smoke anything in the day, then I'm far more prone to canceling those nighttime plans. If I do attend those plans after smoking in the day, then I feel I'm not entirely there. Awkward silences, jokes don't land, keeping a conversation going becomes 10x harder, and I'm inevitably just waiting for an appropriate time to leave. Overall, it just kinda makes you socially awkward and super boring to be around in a social setting. Just from my experience. One thing that I never see brought up is the effect of marijuana on dreaming. Marijuana use can prevent the user from dreaming during regular sleep. When the user stops using marijuana for a while, they can experience night after night of extremely vivid dreams. I can only speak from my own experience, but I have heard this echoed by a co-worker's dad who started smoking again because he couldn't handle having acid trip dreams every night. I suspect that marijuana has some potent effect on REM sleep that will remain underdocumented until it is descheduled and more thorough research can be done. I've noticed after the initial uptick in chatter, people tend to get really quiet, and zoned out in their own thoughts. When I used to smoke it, I found it had a dulling effect on my personality and conversational skills after the fact, too. It's really bad for developing brains, i.e. anyone **under 25 **. It seems like most of my response has already been said, but I want to reiterate 3 major observations what I've noticed from my own semi-frequently weed consumption. 1. Demotivation. The impact from weed on motivation levels I find is in 2 parts. The first part is when you initially consume the weed, most people fall into a habit of eating food and watching something on TV. The second part one found is the next morning, I experience a type of weed hangover the following morning. I feel more groggy and more susceptible to just loading around the following day. 2. Anxiety. Things that aren't currently stressing you out may start to induce anxiety in you. While this isn't always the case, weed has the potential to worsen your mental state if you aren't careful. This impact became more pronounced when I smoked weed solo. Having other people around allowed me to be more present in the moment, whereas I was in my head when I was alone. 3. Food consumption. I found for me that continued weed use led to some unhealthy eating habits. The munchies are real, and for often that not you are craving food that is not considered healthy. If this becomes a more common occurrence, then your overall diet can go south quickly. Demotivation in heavy consumers. It is fine in moderation, but multiple times per day seems to suck the ambition from most people I've seen, including myself long ago. Frequent heavy use can affect your motivation and mood, even during periods of not being high. It is habit-forming. Not technically addictive, but for some it can be habit-forming in maladaptive ways. Bad for your lungs if you inhale combusted flour. I smoked every day for about 10 years, minus about 6 months in all that, as I needed to be clean for a drug test for a job. Emo weed starts off amazing and fun, but after becoming a habitual smoker it turns into a crux that's hard to shake. It's not that it's super addicting, it's just nothing is as fun as being high, so you want to be high all the time. It dulls feelings but highlights feelings of existentialism which can sometimes be overbearing. I would also feel stuck in my life a lot, like it would be hard to make changes but I would want better things for myself but it always seemed impossible to achieve. I did have problems with breathing but I have a history of asthma and took up Tai Chi to compensate, which I found really enjoyable and it helped me to slow down greatly on smoking. The one most annoying thing with being a smoker is your tolerance level goes way up, so even though you are smoking you aren't getting that high you used to get, just a mind-numbing insomnia almost. I also had a loss of appetite over time and ate less. It also made me feel comfortable with where I was in life and I had a lack of motivation, though some days like once a month or two it could really motivate you to do something, but that would wither away quickly. Overall I would recommend it only at parties or every once in a while, but I have quit a while ago and never want to go back to being a daily smoker. Also, me being an expectant mother now has changed my feelings towards it. I don't want my kids growing up around it or around me being high. I feel they should find that on their own if they want and I shouldn't influence them to think it's okay. Edit. Wow, a lot of comments on this, which is surprising for me. I will try to answer you all over time. Thank you everyone for the gold and silver and such. I just want to say I did mean crux instead of crutch. Like I said, weed highlighted thoughts and feelings of existentialism in my life. So I felt like a martyr almost on my quest to find answers to these questions of mine. I felt like I was crucifying myself for a righteous cause to know what I wanted to know. Also, a lot of people saying I described addiction when I stated weed wasn't addicting. I always thought if something was addicting you couldn't quit cold turkey due to your body going into shock or death. Or that you couldn't quit without help like methadone for heroin addicts or something. Since I quit weed cold turkey and when I wanted to, I didn't think it was addicting. Like I choose to eat eggs every day for breakfast, it's not addicting but I like it and choose it. But maybe I am addicted? Lol, just stating. Also, I did psychedelics for a period of time throughout all this. So maybe this changed how weed affected me over time. I had a lot of bad trips and can't even think about tripping again. God bless all of you guys though. I know weed affects people differently, I just wanted to share how it affected me over time. I don't think it should be illegal though, and I think people should be free to use it as they see fit. I believe everyone has the personal liberty to choose their own path. Edit 2. Anyone looking for advice on how to stop, I recommend changing your routine. My husband and I took up different activities like taking the dogs to the dog park, going to hockey games, spending more time with family, going to the beach, Tai Chi, etc. We are both homebodies, but we decided to go out and be more active, and it helped to break the routine of sitting at home smoking. Find new stuff to do instead. It makes you okay with being just okay. It can overcorrect for anxiety and cause more anxiety. It can dull emotions in general. This can be good or bad. When you need to be empathetic or aware, you are less likely to be. It dulls focus. You can power through it and make that focus reappear if needed, but it's an uphill battle to get to that point, and if you lose focus again you gotta rebuild it. Lowers short-term memory, which leads to less long-term memories. Especially of details. It can interfere with sex drive in men. This has been studied and known. Not all men, but some. It can cause stomach pain in some people. It is mentally addictive, and hijacks the dopamine system. This can be reversed by not smoking, but it can make pleasures less pleasurable if you smoke heavily for a long term. Inhaling any type of smoke at all isn't good for your lungs. And that shit's expensive. It can trigger psychosis if you're susceptible to it already. Like anything else in the world, it can be addictive. Putting anything that's not air in your lungs is bad for you. As a pretty consistent weed smoker, I don't like when people say that weed isn't addicting. They're right in saying that it's not addictive chemically like nicotine or something. You can still get addicted to not being sober. I hesitate to send you over to r/leaves, but it was a really important subreddit for me to learn from. Be kind to the folks over there. One of the biggest downsides I've seen as someone that doesn't smoke but who had many friends that do, is it becomes an obsession or crutch. What I mean by this? Most of my friends can't get through the day without smoking pot. They constantly need it for stress or irritation. And by doing this it becomes an obsession. For many, including people I've dated, is all they care about doing. Going to their bestie's house and smoking pot. That's literally it. I'm not saying this end up being everyone. But it is many. Thanks for watching our video. If you like it, please smash the subscribe and like button to support the channel so that we can create more quality content in the future.